You are listening to the Maple Footy Podcast. This is the unofficial football podcast of the North. I'm your host, Sam Little. Find me at official Sam Little on Instagram. There's nothing left to say except for sit back, enjoy, and welcome to the show.
Hello, yes, welcome back to the Maple Footy Podcast, the unofficial football podcast of the North. And yeah, I mean, another big weekend in the Prem, as it feels like the last 5 or 6, I've said that now. But yeah, it's another big title race kind of weekend, despite the league leaders not playing due to some weather conditions, which made it unsafe for them to play. So yes, shout out people's health come well before any game. So I'm glad that they did end up postponing that game. And before we kind of get into the Prem recap, you already know how we start this, the Maple start. So some big Canadian news. Tani Oluwaseyi has signed a new, I believe, 3-year deal with Minnesota United. So that's some very good news. I know he's had some teams kind of circling around thinking maybe he might sign elsewhere. This, obviously, we already know how football works. Just because you sign a new contract doesn't mean you're going to stay. But yeah, whether he's laced him up for Minnesota next season or somewhere else, I have nothing but faith in him. Moving into the French league, Jonathan David has now officially hit 100 goals for Lille and then made it quickly 101. So he kind of just continues to kill it this season. He's currently top of the goal scoring charts in Ligue 1. And I mean, whoever is going to get him at the end of the season for free is going to be quite the bargain. I'm excited to see where he goes. Sticking in France, Derek Cornelius is back. He played some minutes for Marseille, having been out for the last month-ish with a little bit of an injury. So it's good to see him back. I mean, we love Derek Cornelius here. And then, of course, on his team is Kone, who once again didn't play this weekend. Roberto De Zerbi has said some things in the media about Kone, and it kind of feels like maybe those things are kind of leaking into team selection, as he, not that he hasn't been impressed with Kone, but is kind of demanding more. So we'll kind of see what happens there with Kone, De Zerbi, and Marseille. Bombito played again, and again, it was a great performance for Nice. There was a great picture of him doing like that chill guy pose that I think the entire internet has fallen in love with. He's wearing like a little Santa hat. So I mean, national treasure Moise Bombito. I mean, take your hat off to him. He's having quite the season so far. And finishing up in France, Theobert, while he didn't score this weekend, he played in a 0-0 draw with PSG, as he obviously lined up for Auxerre. So a big result for Auxerre, who I believe are kind of overachieving right now in Ligue 1. Not many people have pegged them to be 8th in the league, but here we are, and we kind of love it because we want to see Theobert succeed. Absolutely love that guy. So hopefully it continues. Hopefully he starts finding the back of the net, getting more minutes more frequently. And yeah, moving outside of France, Alphonso Davies is actually looking likely to stay at Bayern. He played this weekend, but it looks like it could be his last game of the calendar year, as rumors are kind of circulating that he may have done something to his hamstring. So as we kind of find out more about that, I'm sure I'll cover it next episode on the podcast, but just something I saw, and we'll kind of see how that plays out. In Italy, Tejan Buchanan racked up his first minutes at the San Siro. That's now a couple of appearances for Inter this year, each of which off the bench. Once again, looked bright, really looks comfortable on the ball, looking more and more comfortable within this Inter setup, which is great because the more Tej plays, the better he's going to get and the more comfortable he's going to get in that league. If he can become a crucial player for such a large club like Inter Milan, who's kind of enjoying a renaissance, if you will, I think it'd be absolutely massive. Moving into Scotland, Alistair Johnston, the GOAT, the real number 10 of CONCACAF, racked up another assist for Celtic. So absolutely massive for Alistair Johnston. We love to see it. And wrapping it up, last but not least, the national team, the men's national team, is looking to open up a training complex come, I believe the report said 2026. So we'll kind of see where that goes. It's rumored that it would be in Toronto. So we'll kind of see what that looks like, what that could entail. But yeah, I just saw that report this morning and wanted to share it. But anyways, moving on from our Canucks, let's move into the Maple Footy Prem recap. As I say every week, you probably know how this goes if this isn't your first rodeo. We go match of the weekend, biggest winners of the weekend, biggest underperformers, best performance, moment of the weekend, relegation zone, European places, and title race. So let's get it out the way, right? I mean, match of the weekend, I think we can all agree Tottenham-Chelsea was a really fun game, I think, especially for the neutral. If you got to watch it, I'm sure you weren't left wanting more. This game felt like it had everything: couple penalties, couple big saves, couple great goals, some dodgy non-calls. The only thing that was missing would probably be like a red card. But Chelsea-Tottenham, I mean, it always feels like it delivers, so we shouldn't really be surprised by now. I'll talk about Tottenham a little bit more throughout the episode. But yeah, I think it was just a really fun game. It it starts out in the first 10 minutes, Kukurea slips twice, leading to 2 Tottenham goals. Not looking good for Chelsea at that moment, but then Jadon Sancho continues his really good run of form he's been on since joining Chelsea. He scores a belter. Credit to him. It was a great goal. And I mean, how can you not kind of want Sancho to succeed after everything that he's kind of had to deal with professionally? So, I mean, it's just nice to see a smile back on his face, him playing some really good football at the moment. And then, of course, second half, Chelsea gets 1 penalty. Cole Palmer, ever any doubts? Enzo Fernandez icing on the cake to put it at 3-2. Then Cole Palmer again with a Panenka penalty. It was a great little moment. And then, of course, Son Heung-min ends up getting a consolation goal to make it 4-3. And yeah, like I said, this game kind of had it all. Crowd was really up for this one. Spurs kind of continue their downward spiral under Ange at the moment, whereas Chelsea kind of keep on racking up these big wins, these impressive points, potentially making them title contenders. As a Chelsea fan, I'm trying to keep my expectations in check. I don't think we're there yet. Who knows? I'd love to be proven wrong, but I just don't think we're there yet. I think we still lack a true number one. I mean, neither one of those goals was 100% on Sanchez, but yeah, definitely I feel like could have done better on him, especially the second goal. But I think that's really what's keeping Chelsea from being like that serious contender. Kind of reminds me of when Liverpool was starting to challenge back in 17-18, but they were missing that like world-class goalkeeper. They go out and sign Alisson, who to me, for my money, was the biggest signing of kind of that golden generation of Liverpool. Obviously, Liverpool have had many golden generations, but of that kind of, 17 to present day Liverpool squad, I do think that Alisson Becker was what really swayed Liverpool to being a dominant side, both in the Prem and in Europe, whereas I think Chelsea's really missing that. I think they are also missing some maturity and experience, but that will only come with seasons and games under these guys' belts. I mean, Chelsea's got one of, if not the youngest teams in the Prem, so obviously the inexperience is expected. Not saying that they're bad or nothing, but definitely just, I'm hesitant to say that they're title contenders without such experience and, like I said, a tried and true number one. I'm sure I'll bring up Chelsea again throughout the episode like I always do, but for now, let's move into another match that was a whole ton of fun. Brentford and Newcastle. This one had a flying first half. 4 goals, 2 apiece in that first half, going into the second 2-2. And then Brentford really turned it on. Nathan Collins and Kevin Schotter, who got a hat trick last time out. all the games blend together now at this point. It was either last time out or the time before. Regardless, he got a hat trick in one of his last 2 games, and then comes off the bench here, scores a decisive win capper, because they're already up 3-2 when he scored to make it 4-2, but still definitely to ease the nerves going into the additional time. But yeah, just really good back and forth stuff, especially in that first half. I mean, Brentford kind of continues to be that team to kind of watch at the moment. They're putting on some real entertaining games and are kind of climbing up the table at the moment. They're in 9th at the moment, but only 2 points off of that 5th place Europa League spot. So I mean, I think it'd be brilliant to see like a team like Brentford kind of moving up, especially after losing their talisman, Ivan Toney, in the summer. And speaking of talisman, Mbomo has now 100 goal contributions for the club. So that's pretty insane, if we're being honest. I mean, this guy just kind of consistently flies under the radar, I feel. Like, he's always putting up some real good numbers throughout the seasons, and I mean, maybe it's because they had Ivan Toney maybe stealing the spotlight. Johan Wissa sometimes does. But yeah, I'm almost sitting on 9 goals, 2 assists this season. Definitely a player to watch, potentially maybe a move on the horizon. Or hey, if he wants to stay with Brentford, I don't think anyone would fault him for that. The final big game of the weekend, or match of the weekend, I should say, it has to be Forest and United. First time in 30 years Nottingham Forest have beaten Manchester United at Old Trafford. Another one with a very quick start, just 2 minutes in. Nottingham Forest really bringing it off the corner kicks. That's 3 corner kicks conceded for Manchester United. 3 goals from corner kicks conceded for Manchester United in the last 2 games. Definitely not ideal for them. Rasmus Højlund then got a big equalizer in the 18th and busted out one of the dumbest celebrations I think I've ever seen. If you haven't seen it, he kind of gives a thumbs down, then goes to like cut his throat, and then I don't know what that symbolizes. I just think it kind of looks stupid, if I'm being honest. But hey, he's a multimillionaire playing in the Premier League for one of the biggest clubs in the world, and I'm sat here talking about him. So, I mean, you know, he can do what he wants, obviously. Him and Foden are kind of having a competition, I would say, for strangest celebrations in the Prem. Just not fans of it, honestly. What happened to just like knee slide, or, you know, Griezmann's hotline bling, or any of that? Like, those are fun. Maybe we'll just stick with those, huh? Maybe. I don't know. But anyways, off on that tangent, then Morgan Gibbs-White sends a shot straight through Onana, which we'll talk more about the goalkeeping epidemic in the Premier League at the moment. In the kind of spoiler alert, in the underwhelmers of the weekend. And then Chris Wood continues his fine form. Honestly, if the season were to end now, he'd probably be my striker in the team of the season. He's been unreal, like 33 years old, and he's really kind of unlocked that post-prime just goal-scoring knack. Probably one of my favorite sub-genres of player. Scoring for fun at the moment. 10 goals in the 15 match weeks. I don't even know if he's played all 15, if I'm being honest. But regardless, you know, this guy moved from Newcastle to Forest on loan in 2023. Didn't really set the world alight, but Nottingham Forest then take the punt on him. And then now, since June 2023, he's got 50 games and 25 goals. If you can't do the math, as I probably can't either, that's a goal every other game. So that's not too bad, not too shabby. Bruno Fernandes actually gets United some hope in the 61st minute. It's in all fairness, a great goal from him. Too bad it doesn't really amount to anything. And then from there, it's kind of just Nottingham Forest really weathering the storm of the United attack, but United never really fully threatening. So I think the same issues are plaguing them regardless of a managerial change. It's just not looking good for Manchester United at the moment. And once again, I'll kind of touch more on them during the underwhelmers of the weekend. It's going to be a long list, this underwhelmers of the weekend. We're getting negative this episode. But yeah, moving outside of that, we'll talk about biggest winners of the weekend. And hey guys, I may be biased, but I got to put Chelsea up there. second in the league, 4 points off of top spot. Of course, Liverpool do have a game in hand, so that 4 could go back to 7. But yeah, they've now separated themselves from Arsenal for the time being, of course, by just 2 points. Separating themselves from Manchester City by 4 points. And really kind of looking, like I kind of said earlier, I don't want to call them title contenders, but they're really kind of looking like a team that's finding that development that I think's been promised under the Bully era for so long. It's kind of all starting to click at the moment. We'll kind of see how this pans out throughout the rest of the season, because there's always that one bad spell of the season, and it's up to the manager to kind of dig your team out of it. Chelsea haven't really hit that yet, so when they hit that, I'll be kind of interested to see how Maresca kind of changes that for them. But yeah, I mean, comparing them this season to last season, it's just night and day. I mean, it's so much more fun to watch them, for one, and it's not just tedious running around the pitch for 90 minutes and maybe a goal will go in. There seems to be a game plan here. There seems to be some really good tactics going on. In and out of possession, they set up really differently, which I kind of can appreciate. And yeah, just right now, Enzo Maresca looking at the moment like a very good signing in the dugout for Chelsea. And then kind of piggybacking off of Chelsea with a team that I've already talked about, Nottingham Forest. 5th in the league at the moment. Yes, they are tied on points with Aston Villa, but they're ahead of them on goal difference. A lot of teams are really sniffing out that 5th place spot, with Villa, Brighton, Bournemouth, Brentford, and Fulham all kind of just a point or two off of Forest at the moment. But Nottingham Forest have been really, really impressive this season. I mean, I don't think anybody would have thought that they'd be in 5th place, especially given everything that kind of happened to them at the end of last season, all the charges that were kind of hit on them. And then, of course, just kind of, we probably all thought that maybe it was going to be another season of them battling relegation. But at the moment, it would take a lot for them to be relegated from this point in time, because they really don't look like they're in any threat. I mean, the relegation zone right now consists of 2 teams on 9 points and 1 team on 5 points. So, yeah, Forest would really have to tank from here. And I think it's just really great to see another team. I know Forest have had their glory days back in the past. So to kind of say it's a different team, obviously probably isn't fully right, but a team that kind of was a sleeping giant for so long, and now to kind of see them challenging for Europe at the moment and looking a far cry from relegation, I think it's really good, and I think it's nothing but positive for the league. Moving into our final winners, I gotta go Crystal Palace. Massive game for them against Manchester City. A couple weeks ago, I talked about Tottenham being Manchester City's bogey team. We can definitely add Palace into that conversation as well. Palace always seems to get points off of Manchester City at some point in the season. Don't believe me, just go back through the record books, because it without fail, it seems like they do. Another one that started real early with a 4th-minute goal for Palace, and from there, it was nice back and forth action, of course, but the big takeaway here is that Palace are now 4 points outside the relegation zone in 17th. That's pretty big. I mean, obviously 4 points isn't the end-all be-all, as there is still a lot of time in this season, but 4 points at this moment is definitely a huge positive for Palace, especially as they're on a little bit of a downward slope for such a long time this season. So for them to now kind of be, obviously don't want to say safe, but in that kind of safety zone at the moment, it's pretty big, and especially against Manchester City, who I know we can all say what we want to say about their poor run of form, but Manchester City still a very good side, still sitting 4th in the table. So I don't think many people would have been thinking that Palace were going to get much from this game, especially City coming off of beating Forest midweek. But Palace continues to prove everyone wrong, I guess. All right, now moving into underperformers. And yeah, as promised, I think this may be the most negative episode, because we're talking about a lot in the underperformers, because there's a good few of them. So right off the bat, I think the biggest underperformer of the weekend was Marc Cucurella's boots in the first 10 minutes of the Chelsea-Tottenham game. Yeah, not much more to add on that. Slipped twice. Could have it's going to be a joke now, but could have ended up being a lot worse. So shout out Mark Cucurella for switching his boots after the second time he slipped and decided these boots were no longer for him. The boots were not made for walking. He ends up switching, and then Chelsea kind of goes on to beat Tottenham. But getting that one out the way, just a little bit of levity here, because like I said, we are going to get just a little bit negative. Arsenal. I think it's a big missed opportunity for Arsenal. I know Liverpool didn't play this weekend, but it's a big opportunity for them to close the gap on Liverpool. Chelsea pulls 2 points away, which obviously, as we know, isn't a whole ton, but it's not ideal, I don't think. 1-1 to Fulham. I know Arsenal fans will kind of go to the offside goal from Bukayo Saka. To me, it is offside, but I might be a bit biased as I'm not the biggest Arsenal fan. But yeah, no, it just feels like a big missed opportunity for Arsenal. A team like Fulham is very hard to play and beat, especially this season. They've had a great season, so I don't want to discredit Fulham too much. But Arsenal, if you want to be the title contenders, I think you have to be putting these games away. I mean, you had many chances to see this one out. Even taking out the Saka chalked off goal, there was a lot of chances here. I mean, Kai Havertz had a good few, missed every single one of them. I mean, I'm not super surprised given that I watched Kai Havertz for 3 years at Chelsea. But it's just coming down to they look kind of lost in open play at the moment because they count so heavily on the set pieces at the moment. It's almost like they're playing for set pieces, and then once they get the set piece, they get their goal. It is impressive, by the way. I will give them their credit. It's impressive that it seems like every other corner they're scoring off of. But they've become extremely one-dimensional, I find. Bukayo Saka used to be an extremely exciting player. Now he kind of just gets the ball, cuts in a cross, and then that's it. And then of course, kind of like you can nullify that. Like, if you're a half-decent defender, I feel like you can nullify that. It's not super tricky. It's not much there. Martin Odegaard hasn't really impressed me since coming back from injury. Kai Havertz, as we already mentioned, isn't the guy. I don't know why Arsenal ever signed him. Their defense is... Their two center backs are quite good, and it seems like they're their highest threat of scoring goals. Their goalkeeper makes some good saves, but I mean, Declan Rice doesn't progress the ball hardly at all. Jorginho, he's just kind of a bit part player at the moment. Trossard is really only effective off the bench. I just find them extremely one-dimensional, and I don't know what the solution is here. I'm going to pitch something that Arsenal fans probably wouldn't like, but I think they should get rid of Mikel Arteta. He reminds me a lot of Poch in the Tottenham era of Poch, where he got them out of that Tottenham banter era and then got them so close so many times, whether it was Champions League, league titles, FA Cup, Carabao Cup, whatever. He got them so close so many times, but could never get them over the finish line, and that's kind of what I feel like is happening with Mikel Arteta, because he definitely has gotten Arsenal to be a more respected side, getting them well out of that banter era that they kind of found themselves in for a little bit. But I kind of question if he has the minerals to properly produce for Arsenal to get them a league title, a Champions League, because that's what they want. Who do you get? That's not for me to decide. I'd be looking at like a guy like Inzaghi, Diego Simeone. Those would be just two guys on my list. I feel like they could do really well with Arsenal, but obviously it's not going to happen, I don't think, anyways, but that would cost you a lot of money to not only sack Arteta, but then buy out Simeone and or Inzaghi out of a contract with Inter and Atletico Madrid. So that's just kind of how I feel. I feel like he's kind of taking this Arsenal team as far as he can at the moment. Now, I'm not trying to blow a draw out of proportion. This is something I've been wanting to say. And once again, when Arsenal's winning, it's kind of hard to be like, oh, by the way, you guys should sack your coach. But a draw against a team that they probably should beat felt like an appropriate time to kind of just pitch that idea if anyone from Arsenal is listening to this. But kind of moving away from Arsenal into another title contender, and it's Manchester City. you thought that after the Forest victory midweek, they could kick on, refine their form, but they just haven't. I mean, they look, as I've kind of touched on in many episodes so far this season, they look old, they look slow, they look uninterested, and they look like they're out of ideas. I mean, Kyle Walker doesn't look good at all. Bernardo Silva, Gundogan, De Bruyne, all not looking great. Erling Haaland, I still think, is probably the best striker in the league, but outside of him, they don't really have much. Nunez and Savinho, I think, have really kind of failed to live up to what you would have wanted from them both. Rico Lewis, where he does get a goal, I've been relatively unimpressed. Stefan Ortega has stepped in for Ederson, and both of them are not enjoying a good season. So, like I said, you would expect City to kind of kick on after the Forest result, but they just don't here. It feels like another bump in this road that just seems to be never ending for Manchester City on the quest for refinding their form, because it's just not happening at this present moment. Who do they have next? I'm not sure. Let me check that real quick. They've got Juve next in the Champions League, and then they have Manchester United next match day in the Prem. So you have to beat Manchester United. I think both teams will be very much up for that one, but I think both of them will need to win that one. So I think it's a must-win game for both of them. That'll be a very interesting one. I didn't know that they were playing Manchester United next. That is very interesting. We'll kind of see how that all pans out and what happens there, because like I said, that's a massive game for both sides. We'll see what happens. But yeah, at the moment, Manchester City just can't really seem to find that form that they desire so badly to try and win another Premier League title. Moving into the red side of Manchester, it's another dull performance from them under Emerin. Another loss as well, and it's a loss at Old Trafford. Not starting off great for him. I think they would have wanted the Manchester higher-ups to kind of have him come in, really tweak some things, and then hopefully turn things around, but that hasn't been the case. They don't have players that suit the style of play that Emerin wants to play. This is going to be a project for United for a very long time. I mean, they really heavily backed Ten Hag this past window, and then you sacked him immediately into this season. So now you're going to have to do the same thing for Emerin, and I really don't think it's going to work, just because you're going to have to clear out so many players. And I know everyone will kind of point at Chelsea, but are the Manchester United owners as competent and as cutthroat as potentially a Bully and company? I don't know, because we've seen this Manchester United downward spiral ever since Alex Ferguson left. Yes, they've won some things. They've had great spells of form. They've challenged for things, but they've never really been the Manchester United that they were under Fergie, and I think that's maybe what they were expecting with Emerin. And now I'm not writing him off at all. This is 3 or 4 games in charge for him, but it's just not looking ideal at the moment for him. Like I said, Manchester City next weekend, and that's a must-win for both teams. And then you got Tottenham in the Carabao Cup, could be a mid-off there. Then you got Bournemouth, Wolves, Newcastle, and then Liverpool to start off the year. It's a decent run of form, but with how up and down Manchester United is at the moment, there's not one of those games where I look and go, yeah, that's a United win there. Like, the ones that I can see them getting up for the most are actually the 2 most difficult ones. That'll be Man City and Liverpool. Everything in between, I don't know. It might not be a great run of form for Manchester United at this present moment. We'll have to wait and see, of course, because it's the Prem. Everything can turn around on the drop of a dime. But yeah, at the moment, the Emerin era is not starting off superbly. Moving into the goalkeeping epidemic that I kind of mentioned earlier in the Premier League. What is going on with Premier League goalkeepers? Because I've not been impressed by many of them this season. I mean, Onana continuing his antics from last season. Stefan Ortega as well. Ederson, when it's not Ortega. Robert Sanchez. And the list kind of goes on. And those are like the big boys. Even Raya can kind of be put in there on certain days because he's so inconsistent. Sometimes he's playing like one of the best in the league, and sometimes he's playing like one of the worst. It's just very interesting to me. I don't know what's going on with goalkeepers this season at the moment. Like, none of them are impressing me. Maybe that's just me, but it feels like every game or so I'm watching goalkeepers just concede goals that like U8 Timbits wouldn't concede. And now I'm seeing guys making millions concede these kind of laughable goals that they could have done so much better on. And it's costing these teams. I mean, like Chelsea, like I've said, I don't think they're serious until they get a goalkeeper. Arsenal are so up and down. Manchester City not looking great. We already know United is in the mud right now. Tottenham, even with Vicario, has not hit the heights that he did last season. He's of course out injured, so they have Fraser Forster, who's a decent backup. Like Jordan Pickford of Everton, I've never been sold on him as a keeper. Like it just goes on and on. I don't know what's going on with goalkeepers. One minute they're playing like prime Buffon, and then the next minute they're playing like if you gave me a pair of gloves and stuck me in between the sticks. So I just wanted to kind of say that because this weekend especially it felt like a lot of goalkeepers were letting in a lot of things that just shouldn't have been let in, and that's kind of been the case for the season so far. But we'll kind of swiftly move on from that into our final little one here, and it's Tottenham and Ange. Where to even begin? I think that if you gave me 3 hours to talk about this, I would exceed the time limit because I think there's so much to talk about with Tottenham at the moment, and Ange as well. I'm going to try to condense this because Tottenham don't look good, like at all. At all. And Ange, he looks defeated at the moment. He looks like he doesn't know what to do. And for a man that with Celtic was a serial winner, and now you come to Tottenham and it just looks like both he and the players are so tuned out of what's going on at the moment. I mean, I really don't even think Chelsea was that good on Sunday, but they still walk away 4-3 at home for Tottenham. That is, it's so baffling to me, and I just look at their squad and I'm really just not moved. I mean, like, how many of their players are actually like world-class talents? I'm hard-pressed to see any at the moment. Like, Son used to be, but he's not now. Dominic Solanke, I think he's a decent striker, not great, not bad. Brennan Johnson, I'll give him his credit. He's had a blistering season. And their midfield, Kulusevski, he's a moments player, nothing more, nothing less. Lucky to not see red, by the way, with a huge high elbow on Lavia. Basuma, Sarr, they don't do it for me. James Maddison, he's so in and out and on and off for Tottenham. It's hard to put him in like the best of the best anymore. Their defense is littered with injuries right now, and that brings me kind of to my next point. What was Ange thinking putting in Van de Ven and Romero for this game? Both coming off of lengthy layoffs. Haven't kicked a ball in a little while. And he puts them in for a very high intense match. And now one part of me wants to try and get it because it's Chelsea. It's a big game. It means a lot. But you're risking the rest of your season on maybe a win. And in the end, it doesn't even work out that way. They kind of get slaughtered. And then Van de Ven and Romero both go off injured, hoping that it's not serious for either one of them. But given the fact that they were just both out for a long time, it's kind of hard to believe that it won't be lengthy layoffs for them. I just don't, as the manager, you're kind of supposed to step in and go, you're not playing today. I know you want to, but sorry, it's a big game. I get that. We can't rush you back because now at this point you're risking the rest of your season and these guys' health for a win. And like I said, it backfires. It doesn't even work. They didn't win. So I don't really understand what Ange is doing there. And like I kind of said about Ange, he just looks so defeated, so lost at the moment. I just don't think he's used to this environment of just not winners. He's been diehard saying that he's gonna win them a trophy this season. I'm hard pressed to believe that, if I'm being honest. I really can't see it. I mean, we already know they're out the Prem. I doubt they get the Europa League. And then now you're looking at one of the domestic cups. And even then, like if they face an informed Liverpool, a Chelsea, even a United on a certain day, Arsenal, even one of the lower level teams, you know, I'm just hard pressed to believe it at this moment in time. I'm not even saying this for the bit here. It's the history of Tottenham. They do this. Sadly, they're just not winners, and they don't know how to win. And I think that you're kind of just seeing that all over Ange's face, all over the level of performance from Tottenham. It just doesn't look good at the moment. I don't know what the answer is, because I honestly think it's something deeply rooted in the club at this point. They just don't know how to get it done. But we'll kind of move out of that, and we'll talk about the best performance of the weekend. So step up Morgan Gibbs White. Yeah, bet you weren't expecting that one. I thought he ran the show against Manchester United. I really do. He leaves with a couple goal contributions. I believe it was 1 goal, 1 assist. And I just really think that he ran the show. The United defense couldn't really cope with him. He was kind of making them look silly at times, and that's never good. But yeah, just De Ligt, Martinez, Yoro, Ugarte, Manu, they just couldn't deal with him. They really couldn't. He was so tricky on the ball, off the ball, creating space for a lot of his boys. Of course, gets an assist, gets a goal, which in all fairness, against maybe a few other goalkeepers, doesn't go in. But we already touched upon the fact that goalkeepers this season haven't been good, so maybe it goes in regardless. But yeah, no, I just think he was very good. A proper captain's performance from him. Just really urging the boys on. I think he just looked so hungry. He wanted to win this game, and that's infectious to the rest of your team. They work their socks off. I mean, he made those around him better too. Jota Silva, Hudson-Odoi, Yates, Anderson, Wood, just all of them looked improved because he was linking up play so well. And just, like I said, just constant outlet for them all, operating those pockets of space, and just really looking comfortable on the ball. So I thought it was a proper performance from him. Another big performance for me was Mbeumo for Brentford. Once again, kind of much like Gibbs White. He leaves with a couple goals, couple assists. Couple goal contributions. He got 1 assist and 1 goal. Once again, kind of just a constant outlet on that right flank for Brentford. Was a handful for that Newcastle left side, if you will, of Joel Linton and Hall. And then even once he kind of like moved into the middle when he was allowed to, Dan Burn and Cher couldn't really keep up with him. Bruno couldn't keep up with him. He just was like just a constant engine for that team. And I mean, it speaks to the fact that he hit 100 goal contributions for them, because he's just such a hard worker both on and off the ball. Always kind of ready for a big moment, and we saw that against Newcastle. So kind of two out of nowhere best performances, I would say. But I do have to give it to them. They definitely deserve it. So moving into moment of the weekend, and yes, call me biased, call me whatever you want. Cole Palmer's Panenka, yeah, for me was the moment of the weekend. I thought it was some lovely, lovely stuff. You're doing it at Tottenham. It's kind of like the crowning moment of the match to make it 4-2 at the time. And just the absolute just nerve to do that is absolutely astonishing. Sometimes you just have to sit there and go, you're watching something special. And with Cole Palmer, it really feels like you're watching something special. You're watching one of the best players in the league, one of the best players in the world at this moment, come into his own, and just never not influencing a game. He's always, even on like some of his off games, he pops up with something big, and he did multiple times against Tottenham on the day. And like I said, just that Panenka kind of seals it for me. It's got to be moment of the weekend, because like I said, you just sometimes got to stand up and applaud because you're watching something special. moving into the relegation zone. Usual suspects, guys. What can I say? Southampton, I mean, they drop points and they're dropping down. I'm kind of done with talking about it. I mean, John Duran got the start for Aston Villa and repays that with a goal. And from there, they kind of just see it out 1-0. Simple as. I feel for Southampton. I feel for their fans. But it's just done and dusted, isn't it? Moving into Wolves, just above them, they also lost to West Ham 2-1. I'm really trying here to keep saying that Wolves will turn this around, but the longer the season goes, the less likely it's looking. Even when it looks like they might, they then lose a couple in a row, and I end up looking wrong. So I still maintain the fact that I do think Wolves will stay up, but my goodness, they really have to turn this around if they want to prove me right, because at the end of the day, that's what the relegation is all about, is proving me right or not. So Wolves, please do turn this around. And then just above them, of course, Ipswich losing 2-1 to Bournemouth, and it just got away from Ipswich, didn't it? It really did. They were leading until the 87th, where then Bournemouth gets one. And then you're going, okay, a draw is not the worst thing in the world. But then Bournemouth then scores in the 95th minute. And that is the worst thing in the world. You were so close to the win. Then you kind of go, okay, a draw is not the worst. And then you still end up losing, especially at home. It's just terrible. It really is. Especially for a team where points have been really few and far between at this moment in time. You would really like to have seen them hang on, but they just don't, and I do think that just comes down to the quality difference between a Bournemouth and an Ipswich at the moment. Bournemouth have the talent right now to kind of gut these things out and win, whereas Ipswich, they just don't. And it's a shame, because as someone that's been rooting on Ipswich to kind of stay up, it just doesn't look like it's going to happen. It'd be really nice if it did, but I don't know. I don't see it happening, especially when you see a result like that. It's a big dent in your survival hopes, and I think that Ipswich players and fans will kind of know that you need to see those games out, but of course, you just don't. Moving into the European places, kind of once again, kind of like the relegation zone, usual suspects here, like from 5th to 10th, only 2 points or less separating them. So that's kind of really interesting. And then even Forest themselves are just 2 points outside of the top 4. But yeah, it's just, I mean, the top 4 right now, I think will be the top 4 come the end of the season, just maybe in a different order. But you got Villa, Forest, Brighton, Bournemouth, Brentford, Fulham, all knocking on the door here to either get the Europa League spot, Europa Conference League, or of course the best one, the Champions League spot. We'll kind of see how that all plays out. But yeah, at this moment, I think that it's kind of a battle for 5th to see who gets that guaranteed Europa League spot. And then, of course, moving into the title race. I mean, Liverpool didn't play this weekend, so I don't have much to say about them, but they remain first with a 4-point lead and a game in hand. And of course, that game in hand could be massive, and it could not be. Not only will it kind of be a little bit of a headache to kind of reschedule that with how busy the schedule is, and once again, for the people's safety, it's 100% the right call to suspend the game. But yeah, I just kind of struggle to see where they're even going to fit this game in, if we're being honest. But I'm sure they will. I mean, guys get paid to figure that out, so they definitely will. And then you got Chelsea, Arsenal, kind of on the heels of Liverpool, but it really does feel like maybe Chelsea not quite there yet. Arsenal kind of feeling like a little bit of a drop-off, and City, as we've discussed in depth, does not look great at the moment. But yeah, guys, I mean, that kind of wraps this one up. I know that ending was kind of pretty fast, but, when the title race is 4 points ahead of everyone else and they didn't even play, I don't have a whole ton to say. But one last thing, though, is West Ham player Mikel Antonio was in a very bad car accident on the weekend. He is reportedly doing okay. I saw that he had, or is scheduled at least, for surgery on his leg. So wishing him a speedy recovery. Thankfully, he will hopefully be okay. And it's just like moments like that kind of remind you that, yeah, this is just a game. These guys are still real human beings. So let's just kind of treat them all with some respect and wish Mikel Antonio the absolute best, because from what I hear, he's a class guy. So, just hoping for the best for him and hoping it's a speedy recovery and hoping that he's doing okay. And yeah, of course, now with all that being said, follow me along everywhere you can. If you want, if you don't, that's okay. Keep listening, keep streaming, all that fun stuff. If this is your first episode, thank you. I do hope you enjoyed. If this is your 46th episode, thank you. I hope you enjoyed. And if this is anywhere in between, I do also hope that you enjoyed. And yeah, thank you so much. I will be posted next week. You already know the drill by now. But yeah, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed, and cheers, everyone.
And that was your Maple Footy podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Check my socials for any and all future updates at Official Sam Little on Instagram, where I am most active. And until next time, live, laugh, little.